to talk about the second portion of my full stack tiered banking application presentation, and in the second part we're going to be talking about database and API. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the database system that I use, and I used MongoDB. I'm sure lots of people do. I know it's very popular. What I specifically used was Atlas, and that gave me the ability to use their cloud platform to have my database running in the cloud rather than just on a local host. And on the left side there you can see kind of what the interface looks like, and I think this is a good way to segue into what is persistent data, and the user data in the context of this project is what is persistent, because it is separately stored from all of the other files. We don't have to worry about that data ever changing if I turn the server off or turn it back on or turn it off or change something in one of the static files. It's not going to kind of like erase or get rid of this data regardless of what happens with the server itself. So even if I turned off my instance of Node, I can still go into Atlas and see that this data is here, and when I turn that instance back on, it'll still be there. When I go into like the all users data, I'll be able to see it, I'll be able to grab it with my static files, it'll still be there, and therefore that is what is persistent in this case. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the DAL file, which is interesting because DAL does not have the same, I guess, definition everywhere that it does in the MIT class. So what a lot of people call it is a data access layer, whereas we have kind of been calling it a data abstraction layer, and I think both kind of fit because the DAL layer, this is kind of like where the code is integrating with an external source of truth like a database. So in our case we're literally integrating with a database, but this layer kind of allows us to think abstractly and kind of think in a way of like what we are getting from. So I want to know, users or like who is logged in, at this specific time. And that is kind of a quote-unquote abstract concept, and what the DAL does is kind of translates that concept into something that is machine readable, that we can actually go ahead and grab the data that's necessary to then kind of process it using like quote-unquote business rules for it then to make sense. The next thing that I want to talk about is RESTful APIs, because that is the architectural style that I chose. And the implementation of the client and server can kind of be done independently without each other. So the server can be being built on one end, and the client side can be being built on the other end, and it doesn't really matter as long as the code can kind of like talk to each other, and they know how to send messages to each other, it can stay like modular and separate. So this kind of means that the code on the client side can be changed at any time without affecting the operation of the server, and then the code on the server side can be changed without affecting the client. And I think that is a good way to kind of like walk into API endpoints. I found this image on the bottom right here, which I think gives a really good visual about API endpoints and what they are. They're kind of just like a specific space for where data is going to be ending up. So typically they're URL spaces, as you can see, and they're all going to be where you are posting, pulling, deleting, and fetching data. So as you can see in the image above from my code, you can kind of see one of the API endpoints that I integrated, which would be where in the account create function, where we're actually inserting in this URL a new name, email, and password.